video to bring you a special message from iFixit. No, we interrupt this interruption with this interruption about new stuff from iFixit. Wish you had a new graphics card but inventory sucks? Fix the inventory problems with iFixit. Whoa, don't drop it. Can't fix that with iFixit. Just kidding, yes you can. Wish you could take iFixit with you anywhere but your pockets aren't big enough? Introducing the new More
and the new Minnow.
Take them with you anywhere. So get iFixit for your loved ones or just get them for yourself.
All right, guys, I know from the perspective you guys were looking at this case for a second here, it was quite uninteresting because it's just a piece of acrylic right now that has this acrylic wrapper on there to protect it. Now this, guys, is the Singularity Computers Spectre 3. I've actually had this in the studio now for a while, and I've been waiting for the okay to go ahead and talk about it. And that's what we're gonna do today. Now the Spectre, this is Singularity Computers. That was the first case they came out with, as far as I can remember. This is actually the same case family that we used for the Beer Bongs and Bentley build that we did for Post Malone back in like 2019 or 18, 19, 22, whatever it is, I don't know. I will just start off right away. Daniel, you gotta start using tempered glass. Acrylic scratches way too easily. And I know that's a lot of work, and I know it's a lot of expense. Your clientele will pay for it. Glass on the front, please. All right, so this is actually the Spectre 3. This is the third iteration of the Spectre. What you might notice is this PCB thing right here. This is their latest, Singularity Computers is known for shaking up the industry. Daniel and his team are enthusiasts among enthusiasts. They are the enthusiasts that enthusiasts aspire to be someday. And Daniel has taken a lot of his very particular tastes in design and created his own company creating products based on what he would have loved to have seen in the industry. Now, Singularity Computers was an SI that was custom builds only. It would take on clientele and build custom computers based on their needs. And they were like all one-off. It wasn't a pre-built by any standard. But this is his latest iteration of how can I change the industry? This is the power board. The power board is designed on the same philosophy as distribution blocks for water cooling. You take some acrylic, you make layers, you make paths, and you have an inlet and an outlet, and it transfers fluid somewhere without needing tubes. It's what this is right here. This is actually a front-mounted reservoir, but same kind of concept. The fluid will move around in this, and it's designed to do nothing but look pretty, honestly, and give a little bit of extra volume to the system. This, in the back right here, the motherboard tray of the Spectre has always been a distribution block for water cooling. So you can see you've got your inlets and it will move around, and this is a reservoir, you got a D5 pump built in, and it moves it around and allows you to cleanly have fluid distributed. The Spectre 3 has also brought a few different changes when it comes to the design. So as you can see, we do have a pretty distribution block. The inlet's up here, goes around, comes back out right there, and it's just a way to be able to make the front look kind of nice. In terms of airflow, there is a gap between this front plate and the acrylic. It's not going to be the most optimal airflow, but if you got a 360 on the top and a 360 on the front and 3 fans, it's going to flow plenty, especially for water cooling. But as you can see right here, increase the volume of the reservoir. If you were to compare this to the original Spectre case that we did for the Post Malone build, you'll notice they've made the acrylic thicker. They've made the channels deeper, so there's more volume, better flow, easier to fill, easier to bleed. Something else worth mentioning too is vertical mount. You can vertical mount your GPU. You can even SLI vertical mount if you want. They do have an SLI vertical mount adapter here so that if you were running SLI for overkill reasons other than looking cool or maybe Port Royal benchmarks or something, you can run dual vertical mounted water-cooled graphics cards right here. Not a whole lot more to talk about besides the fact that the build quality, the grade of the aluminum, the anodizing, this is not powder coated, this is anodized. That is obviously the process of using electrolysis and dyes to dye the metal itself. It actually will open up the pores of the metal, accept the dye, and you get this awesome bead blasted texture and anodized. And they do have other colors available as well for this. Nothing's perfect in my mind, and I kind of wish they had done the feet design a little different. The case is fairly weighty. I mean, this is not cheap grade aluminum. Aluminum, or aluminium, depending on where you are in the world, will be lighter than steel, naturally. But these are very thick plates, so they have some heft to them, absolutely no doubt. The foot design is something that always concerned me about the Spectre, the way it all mounts right here, and then you've got this kind of a stilt that sticks out. The problem is, it's always been a little wobbly. There's some flex in there. If you see, I can push it down. That's all flex. Now, most of the weight is gonna be back here on the motherboard, which is on the same plane, or the motherboard tray, which is on the same plane as where the mount is, right? This vertical line right here. But if you start mounting heavy graphics cards out ahead of that, then you can start to get some sag on it. They also still have a two-piece foot design. And I do remember a conversation with Daniel in the past where he said he wanted to make this a single piece to help with that flex. I'm not sure, I mean, if you look at the way that the junction is right there, it looks like it's designed to not flex so much. The problem is metal does flex. That's the way metal works. You know, you can't really help it. So as you can see, there is some flex. Same thing on this front piece right here. You can see there is flex in that. But it is an open air chassis. It is an open air chassis that essentially has a spine that everything hangs off of. So there is going to be some flex. So my only concern is if you get a heavy water block here, I mean, water blocks for graphics cards can get pretty heavy. So if you get a heavy water block here, you start adding tubes and stuff, is it going to cause this to flex more? And I feel like if they had triangulated this, if they had made this piece somehow touch the foot, filled that gap right there, then it wouldn't be able to wobble. Just to prove that it's the metal flexing, all I did was shove a piece, like electrical tape roll in there, and I'm gonna shove this tape roll right here. Right? So, I mean, I feel like that surprises me, honestly, knowing Daniel and his level of perfectionism. It really surprises me that this is still the design. Even if you only did the rear, like that. It's a million times better. So I'm just a little shocked by that. Look at the machining on that though. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, this level of perfectionism. You can tell they are not sparing any expense on whoever their machinist is that's making these parts for them. So to go from something that beautiful to wobbly is really disappointing to me. And I would absolutely come up with a method of stopping that from wobbling. Even if I take a piece of rubber, like a rubber foot, and just kind of like shove it in there. Another thing to point out with rubber, these feet do not have any rubber on the bottom. It will scratch your desk if you do not add some sort of a rubber strip or something on the bottom yourself. Keep that in mind. I don't know if that's supposed to be that way. No feet whatsoever, which means vibrations from this, if fans and stuff are making noise, will transfer to your table. Rubber isolating pads need to be added to these feet. Daniel, I know this is an early edition. They may already be there. I'm pointing out based on what my chassis currently has. All right, so plugs, we've got our Molex plug right here, which is just a 2-pin, 12 volt and ground for our D5 pump right here, which is built into the distribution block. Front panel connectors, and then fan header. This is, I believe, PWM. Yes, this is just an RPM wire and potentially PWM wire for the D5. Well, this just arrived. So I kind of knew this was coming. It's actually a little more than I was expecting. So this is the retail version of the power board. There was some, remember this is a prototype. I said that at the start, that there were some changes and small tweaks that Singularity likes to do to their systems or their cases as they're designing and building. So I've had this since before it launched, but the power board aspect of it, which is something they continued working on after the Spectre 3 launch, is something that was very prototype-like. So let me show you what we got here. We actually have a bit of difference here, and I'll come back to this in a second. Don't fall, stay up there, thank you. This is a fully retail version of the power board. It is flat packed, the Spectre 3. So these are, look at the packaging of this. This is like, feels like wetsuit material, it's like a neoprene. But anyway, this is all the pieces of the Spectre. And this is typically how you receive them. We received ours, see, these are all the pieces of the system right there. So we received ours assembled and in like a flight case, one of those black and silver, looks like stuff like a band carries all their equipment in. But this is typically how you'll receive it, and then you have to assemble it yourself. So I like that we have extra pieces here now. You can say a lot about a brand based on their packaging. They don't spare any expense when it comes to the experience you get. This power board and Manifold The motherboard tray, they actually refer to this all as the manifold. And so if you hear me refer to manifold, I basically just mean motherboard tray. So this one is actually a non-see-through, and there's fingerprints and stuff on it because they were obviously handling it. I really kind of like this one more than the see-through. One of the things I never really liked, and you can see where that's sort of touching right there and creating what looks like a wet spot, but that's not going to be visible once the motherboard's on there anyway. Standoffs are also not in there, so I'd have to transfer them. But I love the black on this. I mean, I've always liked the distribution block, aspect of the Spectre, but I've never been a fan of the see-through. But anyway, so here's some changes here. It's kind of difficult to see, but you can see down in there on the prototype, there's 3 24 pins, which required custom cables to go from the power supply to the power board to distribute power. Now we've gone back to a more traditional setup here. So we've got a single 24 pin, and then we've got EPS power and PCI Express power here. So those are standard cables you'll find in any power supply, which you'd still want to get custom cables made through Singularity, and by the way, you can customize the links with them. These are just the basic black sleeved cables that they sent me. But you can get them in different sizes and links if you order them custom through them. So if you know exactly what the link needs to be coming out from the PCI Express, say to the graphics card, especially if you're using like their 180 reverse adapter so it points straight back, you can measure and give them custom links and they'll send those to you. But something else they're also working on, these are also prototypes. That's why they are not the cleanest, prettiest looking boards, but they've got 90-degree adapters for motherboards like mine, which use a 90-degree adapter. So the challenge obviously is when you've got an EATX motherboard like this, typically they'd be expecting it to be like a small loop, right? It comes up and then loops back down to the 24 pin. But they've got these 90-degree adapters, which are supposed to help to bring it back up into a normal orientation. And then you could take this flexible PCB, and it's kind of creased because we've been playing around with this a little bit already to try and figure out how we would use it. It's actually just a solid piece ribbon cable in there that connects the 24 pin. In my particular instance, it would have to be much, much shorter. But if I were to have a custom one of these, which was like half the length, it would look really good. Because as you can see, it's way too tall for mine. So they call these the link cables. So these are an example of the 24 pins. The whole idea of the power board is to remove the clutter of cabling. And if you just move the clutter from the back of the case to the front of the case, then that doesn't do you any good. But yeah, see, it's way too long. And that's part of the problem with the 90. See, if this wasn't a 90 degree, it would just be over here more, and then the loop would look a little more natural, I think. Okay, I almost would rather have something like that, but shorter, I think, than the ribbon cable. Again, new concept here. I think there's some ironing out that needs to be done. We've got 8-pin EPS up here at the top. So again, remember, these are standard length cables. I would absolutely need these to be shorter to be proper with this one, but see? This is the concept or the idea now with the power board, is your cabling is all tidy and short and not having to pass through like grommets and stuff. Because right now, the way this is designed, the only power that would be visible, like any cables that would be visible on the back side, would be SATA, if we had SATA devices, and any Molex if we had Molex devices. Now right now the only Molex that we have, I already showed you, is the water pump Molex. And that's already routed to where the power supply goes, so that'd be completely hidden. I have no choice though, if I use this motherboard, to have to use that 90 degree, which means but I could still get shorter cables, you know what I mean? That'd be fine. Or I'd switch the motherboard, which I don't really want to do, although I do have a couple other Z690 boards coming and I can go with my favorite one. Now let me put the black pump cover on there, because that's the other thing that really sort of ties this all together. And this is, by the way, a black RGB pump cover. It will glow RGB, it will glow inside the pump cover right here. So that's pretty neat. And then if we screw that down there, so imagine that glowing, right, RGB. There is edge lighting up here that will glow down. It'll just glow on the edge of the manifold on this one here. It won't really shine through anything. They added a little bit more volume to the reservoir by having the piece sit on top of the manifold, giving more depth, whereas this one is flush as part of the manifold. This cover stands off the manifold, which gives you that much more volume. Okay, so let's talk about some of the manifold features itself. So this is the 24 pin on the power board. One of them now instead of 3, and the position of it's better. So it's gonna be coming back like this, going to your power supply, which makes more sense than trying to plug in that way. That would have been a crazy bend. How those come straight off the power board and have to make a turn This gives you more length because it can curve back. So that'll go like that, and then this will plug into your motherboard or your power supply, and then EPS and PCI Express will plug in there as well. Now we also have here ARGB headers. Now the Manifold slash power board itself does have RGB headers or RGB lights. So these little white rectangles, those are LEDs that are placed all around the power board. So you're gonna get some backlighting to your motherboard, even if your motherboard doesn't have backlighting already. But you see right here, ARGB2 out 1, out 2, out 3. So these are outputs. You can plug other RGB devices into this if you want to. Right here, ARGB2 in, so this is the second channel of RGB, and that's the input. So that'll go in, that'll light up the power board and other devices that are plugged into it. You also have these little headers up here, which give you the 3 fans, just like up there. That one's exactly the same. 2 8-pin EPS, fan splitter, as well as ARGB out 1, 2, and 3. Actually, it's out 4, 5, 6, and 7. This is also an ARGB in. And the reason for that is a lot of motherboards have an ARGB header either on the right or on the top, and that gives you a nice short run for that. So you can have custom lighting all over the place with this. Like I don't know if I can't remember if I said it already. I'm gonna say it again if I have. Daniel and his team are the enthusiasts that enthusiasts aspire to be. So anyway, huge thanks to Singularity for Computer for sending us this. I really like the black. I didn't even know black like this was an option. I've only ever seen the Spectre in the full clear like this. So it's clear where the reservoir is so that you can see the level. It's black everywhere else, which I really, really like. Because if I do have to have any cables back here for any reason, which the only cables I can imagine that you have to have on the back at all, period, would be if you're running like Corsair fans or something like that, where you have to have their particular control box. But if you got creative, you could absolutely get it all down here where you can't see it at all. The Spectre case, very well thought out, a little challenging at times when it comes to mounting certain things without being visible through the clear manifold. But now that I have a solid black one, I feel like I could definitely get creative on, free to mount things where I want, but also creative on how to use this. I also know for a fact that one of the things that I need in my system, now that I've gotten so used to it, is having a sensor panel, which shows me all my temperatures and stuff. We did a video about how to use a Raspberry Pi screen as a monitor to have always active inside your system showing your temperatures. I almost wonder if there's a way to either integrate it into this panel somehow, or make some sort of a free-floating thing here or something, because there's nothing really goes right here. That's why I'm considering using this for my build, because it brings us some freedom. I just have some challenges with that motherboard because of the 90-degree header on that. That's perfect for cases that have a grommet right there, so the cable can just right through the grommet. But in this instance, that's kind of a hindrance. So like I said, I have some other Z690 boards coming. If those work better than this one, I have no problem switching it at all. Oh, and check out that sexiness right there. They etched Jay's 2 cents and my logo right there. And where that is should catch RGB lighting, and because it's etched, it should refract light and light up. So I'm not sure if that's something you can pay for them to do, or if Daniel and his team did it as a thank you. But either way, I like stuff that has my logo. That's cool. And here's the thing. Is that, well, it only kind of stinks is on the backside where you can't see it. But I know it's there. Now you do too. But you know what? If you want a power board and you don't have a Spectre 3 and you don't plan on buying a Spectre 3, Singularity Computers is creating power boards for other popular cases. So what I have right here are 2 power boards. One for the Lee & Lee 011 Dynamic, and one for the Corsair 5000 series. So you could get power board cleanliness when it comes to wiring without having to necessarily buy the Spectre. So there you go. I feel like I need to assemble this case. I'm not gonna do that on video because it's gonna look just like this, only this manifold, and I'm gonna have to seriously consider using this for my personal rig that's gonna replace my 10th gen system at home in Inwin 928. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, we'll see you tomorrow, and make sure you check it out because we are gonna be taking a look at these power boards in third-party cases. See you guys tomorrow.